call this meeting to order. All members are present. Please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Motion to approve. Motion by Lynn.
Second.
Second by Jennifer. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Agenda is approved. Comments and requests from visitors? No visitors present. Okay. Consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Is there anything that somebody wants to remove? Motion by Sunny to approve the consent. Second by Lynn. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Consent is approved. Action items. Item A, a resolution to accept the donation. So, pull this up. We've got multiple donations on that.
We get multiple donations from Donors Choose, which is typically spearheaded by an individual. And then, if you remember that, we took a grant from donation from Eric Decker, the NFL Foundation, matched that grant. And so, I would recommend to the board that we accept the donations as presented.
I'll move the resolution to accept the donations.
Motion by Sunny.
Second.
Second by Kara. Any further discussion? Okay, resolution roll call vote, please, Jennifer.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Resolution for accepting donations is approved unanimously. Okay. Then we have discussion items. Superintendent. Update.
Sure. First of all, board, I know that you don't like to see paper at your table, and I sincerely apologize for that. You see a number of pieces of paper in front of you today for some of our discussion, and it just simply stuff just didn't get it done until today, so I apologize for that. There are plenty of copies here, so if people in the community want a copy, we're certainly willing to do that, and we can upload after the meeting is over. So, the first item that I want to talk about is our enrollment. In our enrollment, we typically put on at the end of the month, but I can just give you an update that as of last Friday, we're at 2250, which is hanging right in there steady. So we haven't lost any students since we reported back at the end of September. So that's really good news that our enrollment is really steady. The second item that I want to discuss with you tonight is the survey results, and that is in a handout to you. We had 188 total student responses, and you can see a majority of those came from 10th and their 10th grade and their seniors. And then most of the people who responded are currently in our high-rate in-person model. Interestingly enough, students commented that there was 29 of them where they said the entrance conferences were good or great. Some of the information is confusing to them, and they felt like the teachers didn't have enough for them to, but it's again, very small numbers in comparison, 10 out of 179, so that's pretty good. Not a lot of responses as far as on the online of what is going well. I always attribute that if you don't get responses, that usually means a pretty good thing. So our online is going well. Education in the hybrid model. These are our students again. So 128 students said good, or comments on homework time and being able to see friends, good teacher communication. So of the 179 responses, 128 were, being back in school is better than distance learning. There were 46 no comments, and then there were 14 negative comments, and a lot of those were around not wanting to have masks on, or not being able to see all of their friends. In the in-person hybrid model, what can we improve on? Very limited responses. As usual, kids, the responses that we did get, kids were like less homework. And that's pretty typical of students wanting to have less homework. 15 of the responses were just wanting some quicker responses. So if they're at home, just getting a little quicker responses of what they can get some help on. And again, on the last item there, just is there anything else that you did have a chance? And again, 6 of the comments were pretty specific as far as just miss our friends. We did also survey our staff. We got 127 responses. As I put out last week, that's out of 377 roughly staff members. Overall, our staff rated us at a 3.92 out of 5. Round that up to 4 out of 5. I'm okay. I'm pretty okay with that. As you can see, we had most of our respondents were teachers. The staff that did give us feedback ranked us 4.28 out of 5 on our entrance conferences. There were, again, almost half of those, over half of the responses were that it went well, to good to great. So we asked them to reflect back on the first month of school, what is going well, and of those 170 or 127 responses, 90 of the teachers said that our students were showing great resilience. They were doing the best they could. So they're just really positive comments about our students. And then 24 more specific responses about the morale and the staff staying positive. So again, very, very good comments there. What can we improve upon? There's a feeling of overall uncertainty and a feeling of drain. I think COVID fatigue is definitely here. It's not just within schools. It's in our communities. It's in our country. I'm sure it's in the world. Some communications regarding COVID would be more welcome. Technology inconsistency. I can tell you that we've addressed that. When the survey went out, some buildings had technology, had their new laptops, some did not. We are now almost fully deployed with our staff laptops. So that, if I was to survey that now, I hope that would go away. Do we still have some work to do on training for Schoology and the MacBook Airs? Absolutely. But at least the inconsistency of not all staff having the laptop should be taken care of. And then lastly, when things are new or we have new adventures, people need time. And so that was just another object that was brought forward. There just seems to never be enough time. Then we got a really nice response from our parents, 695 responses from our parents. Fall entrance conferences, again, our parents ranked our fall entrance conferences at 4.19 out of 5. So again, that's over 80%. That's always a good thing. And then they had the options if their kids were in online or in hybrid to talk to us about what was going on. As they looked at the online, our internet access for those kiddos that are doing that was again 4.25 out of 5. And they felt like they knew they could go to somebody, again, 4.09 out of 5. We did have 34 responses from parents, so 34 parents whose kids are online. 32 of the 34 were either positive or did have a response, and again, when they don't respond, that's usually means a pretty good thing. We did have 2 comments that were directed to some things that we knew that for a couple students didn't go well. I don't remember the exact, but I'm sure it probably had some of the technology. We had just some specific student questions noted in the what else do you still need with assistance with, and I'll be addressing those with our director, so she'll see those comments on that. And then lastly, the parents who have children in the hybrid or in-person model, what is going well? Does your student have the right materials? Again, 4.37 out of 5 say, yeah, when they come home on the off days, they have their materials. Does your student feel safe? 4.6 out of 5. Does your student get the appropriate amount of social and emotional support? That's at 4. Does your student know how to access assignments, resources during at-home days? 4.16. And is their at-home days appropriate and challenging? So remember that was a 1 to 5 scale, and 1 was less than an hour, 3 was that little over 2 hours, and 5 was 4 hours. And we wanted to see numbers between 3 and 4, so we're seeing 3.25, 3.24. What is going well? We had 391 positive comments, just that kids are back in school. It seems safe. They have a routine. Homework feels appropriate. It's better than last spring. I saw that a number of times. It's better than distance learning and small class sizes. What can we improve on? Parents want or need more education or understanding the safety precautions. So what is it that we're doing? Especially around masks, busing protocols, and lunch seasons. 49 of the responses where they want more communication and access to at-home days. And then lastly, we asked them, for that last question, what is the others? We had lots of very specific comments from families, but we did have some nice thank yous. We had 12 very specifics. Get my kids back to school every day. There was some other input on just need for technology. Families who might have 2 or 3 people home on those off days, and there's not technology for them. And then, of course, not being able to match with their friends, which mirrored what our students were saying. So all in all, good data, things to learn, things to do, but as I suspected, that overall, for the most part, the families like the start of the school year.
So how will this data be used from here on?
Great question. I think how we went over this today in our admin team. I think what we need to do is just, of course, celebrate a little bit, but then dig in and look at some more of those specific comments and go, okay, so what can we do to address that?
It seems like some of the themes for me were coming more from the higher grades, and I wasn't noticing the themes as much related to elementary school, so I'd be curious if there's lessons learned that can be break down. Either by building or by grade or by, K5. I don't know, but that seems like there's maybe some nuance. I think the overall summary is good. But I just think it's really important when we ask families, and I believe we do, but I just think it's really important that when we ask families, our teachers, to spend the time doing the survey, that we really do try to make improvements. It takes, to do it well, to do a survey well, and to write a lot of comments is time consuming, especially, we're all strapped for time, so.
Remind me, was this anonymous?
This was anonymous.
Did they have an option to put their name in?
They did not. So we have,
Maybe in the future, that might be good. If people want to put their name in, then there could be a mechanism for following up, especially if they're identifying specific situations.
Sure.
I think that'd be a really good way for people to feel like they've really been heard and being able to address things.
That's a great idea. Especially because I think sometimes where you put, like maybe you're hesitant to talk to your teacher or your student's teacher or teachers or administrator because you know that they've got so much going on, but this is kind of a place where you would feel safe trying to address some concerns.
We did, you're right, we did that in the spring last year. We said, if you want follow-up, put your phone number and we will call you, and we did do that in our spring one. I think we did that pretty much after we got things all kind of handed out and stuff, so that would be something important. Thanks for that, suggestion. Any other thoughts? You're right, so Kara, if you take time to ask the questions, we should use the data to show people what we're doing.
And I think it's good to communicate that through communications with
Does anybody have a problem with me sharing this as a link? Like, can anybody see the results? I can upload it into the board book and then also share it out as a.
I don't think any of the data sample sizes are, both, it doesn't sound correlated to specific buildings or anything.
No,
So I think it's safe data standpoint to share.
Thank you for that. The next item that I wanted to talk about, and you see this on your table tonight, is the examples of the dashboard, and they look like this. So on the top, you see St. Cloud's dashboard.
I don't have that.
You don't have this one? Jennifer? You don't have that one. Well, there's more copies of this.
Oh.
So on the top, you see our St. Cloud's dashboard of how COVID is affecting their district and buildings, I believe it is. And then you see the example of what's happening at Sauk Rapids Rice. Given that last week on Friday, I did share our district's data with parents, and that drew a number of email responses asking if why isn't our district doing something similar to what those other districts are doing. And as you can see, what I sent to our families last week matches pretty similar to that, what we did. So, I talked about we had no cases on the 18th of September all the way through last Thursday when we had 20 positive cases with 130 quarantine. I do want to clarify for the public, especially, that when we say that we have 20 positive cases, those cases are someplace in the 10-day isolation. It could be from day 1 all the way to day 10. And that those people actually do have COVID. When we say that there's 138 kids in quarantine, that means that they've had exposure. They're not sick. Now, there's potential that they could become sick, and we had a couple of cases where they had close contact and it didn't manifest until 5 to 7 days after. But those quarantine people are home because they've had exposure and but they're not sick.
Okay, so can you clarify one point for me? If someone is in quarantine due to some reason outside of school, is that counting? Like their spouse who got it from work has nothing to do with Rocori, so they're in quarantine?
Anybody who reports to us that they've had a contact or close contact, and we send them a letter with that quarantine note, goes into these numbers.
So is there a way that we can split out that data to say that, so there's 100, I'm going to make up numbers, right? 140 people in quarantine, 30 of those people are in quarantine due to exposure in school, and 110 are in quarantine due to exposure from outside of school.
Yeah, because if you do, if you do the just simple math on how many confirmed cases versus the outlay of students and staff in quarantine, it's quite alarming. I think because it's just so many more people, and I'm curious how many of that 138, same thing Sunny said, has to do with school close contact, or is an outside factor?
I will look into if we can do that, if people are willing to say, to give up their contact, I don't know. If they're willing to say they got it from the community.
Sometimes it's hard.
But I mean, I could,
Well, you don't always know, but
Yeah.
you know if you're making a class, an entire
Correct.
class quarantine because somebody in that class tested positive.
yes,
So you would know that that class is quarantining due to exposure in school.
yes.
If somebody calls you and says, I'm quarantining, then more likely than not, they're quarantining because they had exposure outside of school. And so you should be able to split those out.
But is that what you said? So for you said 138 are quarantining, is that because,
Right now,
those are-
that is all inclusive.
So it's,
That's
okay,
the
so
entire
even if they're calling up or writing in Sky, where I'm keeping my kid home because my husband has COVID, that is included.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think it's fine to have those totals, but I think it's important to split out as much as we can, as much as we know, whether they're in quarantine due to exposure in school or elsewhere.
Community-based or school-based.
I agree, and I think that this sort of dashboard idea is great because it helps kind of prevent some of the rumors as far as like, oh, there's an outbreak, or, you kind of hear anecdotes of stories and you don't really know what's true, and I just feel like this is a lot more helpful, or this is very helpful in, squashing some of that.
But I think just tying into like the survey, it's more education about the safety precautions plus important seating, that can all be tied into that, also education tool, and this is our numbers. So, I see other districts are doing it, and it seems like people want that information. It's valuable.
Well, to me, the survey results are asking for something. I mean, this is a solution to some of the things they're asking, because staff are saying they feel an overall level of uncertainty, and I think we can't fix that entirely, but we can do a better job of not that, I think what we've been doing is okay, but I think it is time to maybe move into a model where we're showing our work a little bit more, so people kind of feel like they're understanding where things are going and not having to do their own research or talk to people. And then there was also from the parents something related to, was it having understanding of what precautions are being taken or something like that?
I have a great example of that, Karen. So we had some response like, why are you making my kids sit at this table? Well, it's simple that in order for us to do better contact tracing, we need to know where that class is sitting. And so that we don't have a whole lunchroom go out, and that if there is close contact, that we traced it down to certain tables. And I know it is painful for students and their parents to hear that I don't get to sit with all my friends and lunch, and I empathize, I sympathize with that. But it really does come down to making sure that we can contact trace and only have those certain students go out versus.
Can I ask a question about that? When, and I'm going to use the lunchroom, if in the lunchroom, students are being placed 6 feet apart, so they're social distance, and the lunchroom is being cleaned on a regular basis, why would anybody have to quarantine? If somebody in the lunchroom tested positive?
I just grabbed that example, so I'm
Okay.
not going to that example.
Okay. That just
Like,
confused me.
one of the comments we saw was, why do kids have to walk certain ways down the hallways? Well, we're trying to combat that, walking this way with each other and then keep the traffic flowing. So those are the questions that people have, like, why are we doing these things? The last note that as far as the data is concerned, I think is important is, after this week is over, 87 of our students who are currently on quarantine are going to come back. That's a large number, it's over 60%. So starting Monday the 19th, when we come back off our VA break, again, as long as we don't see anything happen right now, we're going to get 60% of those kids back. And then that's going to be a positive for us. So I guess it's important to have those dashboards up. That number probably won't be in there because that's hard to because you don't want to do a whole bunch of projections, but I need you to know that. So I guess I kind of explained it today to our administrative team. We're going to see peaks and valleys, but what Rocori wants to do is try to keep it consistent as possible so that those peaks and valleys don't get us to yo-yo. Okay? That's why we put these precautions in place.
So I just want to make a comment, Brad, I shared this with you. Within the last 3 to 4 days, probably over the last week, I've had a lot of parents and students contact me and ask me what's going on. Teachers are telling my kids that after MEA we're going to distance learning. And I have real concern with that because if our teachers are saying that to our students, they're creating unnecessary anxiety, unnecessary panic, unnecessary questions, worry, when that isn't what's been communicated. And so I do think that we need to make sure and we need to hold our teachers accountable to not be spreading those rumors. They need to let that information come from you and not be walking around their classroom saying, well, after MEA, we're going to be in distance learning. Because that doesn't do good for our students at all.
Yeah, Sunny, I know we haven't discussed this at all. Same thing. I have that same concern that trusted adults are potentially causing some students concern, anxiety from hearing comments that they're just naturally going to believe because they trust the adult that's in the classroom with them. And so we just need to keep things factual. I think the dashboard lets the facts tell the story. So that would be a really good first step. But I think just the contribution of teachers or educators, whoever potentially saying things, whether it's their opinion or not, fair, but those decisions are made by you.
I've been very clear in my communications with our staff that the decision does come from me and that we are currently holding as we are and that those decisions are being made through data that's being taken from Stearns County Health, Department of Health, our regional superintendents, the EBT team, which includes our district leadership teams and myself. And you as a board, you are following along. I'm giving you the information so you can follow along. I've been very clear, and I think we hear it from our families that they want their kids to be in school. And so we're doing everything we can to keep them in school, even if it is in the hybrid model right now. That does lead us to the next conversation piece of it, that you don't have anything in front of you. Oh, yes, you do. This is there's a sheet of paper. Do you have this, Jennifer?
No.
Who stole Jennifer's stuff?
Hey, I just one quick thing, now that we brought the dashboard up, folks are gonna wonder when is that gonna be developed and available? What kind of timeline do we have on that?
ASAP.
So tomorrow?
Do my best.
Okay.
Yeah. Beth, did you just do that? Oh, boy. Okay. So this is a letter that the regional superintendents wrote. We did plagiarize this from a group of Northeastern superintendents. This just talks to our families, but not only our families, because the families have heard it from me every single time I send something to them, but our communities. Because if you look at the data right now in Stearns County, Kimball has 1 case in their school. Holdingford has 2 cases in their school. You know, we have less than 1% in our school. But our numbers in the county are going up. And we need our communities to understand that their kids keep coming back to school if they do their part. So we're gonna ask St. Cloud Times, WJON, the Record, our local newspapers to print these Facebook presence, to print these letters from the regional superintendents to try to help our community understand that it really is a community-wide effort.
Can I just add to this? I think this is fantastic and important. I think this board has been very clear that we believe students need to be in school, and I'm proud of the board for that. We have, used what limited powers we have to push to have kids in school, but this is the game that we have to play, and so if we need to have kids in school, but we can't do more. These are the rules of the game. So just asking families to play the game with us so we can keep kids in schools, keep parents working, and all the things that come with that. Businesses running. So this is really important. So I appreciate that you're doing this.
I wish I can't take credit for it. Northeastern Superintendents did pass it on to a couple of our things, but I immediately signed on yesterday afternoon and said, yeah, what's happening? So, okay, I do want to talk about our next decision. Our next decision was scheduled to be this Thursday. Obviously, it's NEA break, and so letting families know if there were to be a change on Thursday when they're not in school is probably not the best time. So I would entertain a discussion on potentially making the decision either tomorrow or Wednesday, so families and teachers and staff had an opportunity to know prior to Thursday. I'd be interested in hearing the board's opinion.
I guess my one question would be whether in school or not, we're getting that information via email. So as a parent, to me, I'm going to find out on Thursday whether we're in school or not in school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess, to me,
Some of
if you feel it needs to go earlier, that's
I
fine.
don't see the advantage. I guess explain the advantage. What's the difference?
The only advantage I see is if students have supplies and books and things that they're going to need at home, that they know before they leave on Wednesday, or for some kids who leave tomorrow and they won't be back until whenever they could bring everything with them that they think they might need. Otherwise, you'll have a lot of people coming to pick up stuff.
Okay, so I just want to try to let the elephant in the room is what is Mr. Kelvington thinking about doing for the next 2 weeks, right?
Right.
And the simple answer is this. In our conversation with what the county's numbers look like, what our own district's numbers looks like, and what the other areas, regional schools are going to do, they're not interested in jumping like St. Cloud did. St. Cloud jumped to a distance learning, and our region, other than St. Cloud, our region is not interested in doing that. Stearns County Public Health lead Sally Sands said, does she think it's appropriate to go up a tier to tier 3? That means that we get hybrid for both. Her answer to that question is yes, that is appropriate. Does that change anything for Rocori schools? It does not, because our elementary is already doing hybrid. We're already doing the lower class sizes. You guys approved that when you did the extra staff. And our buildings took out whole other things to get that 50% capacity. Now there's one caveat, and that is our 6th grade. Our 6th grade cannot spread out any further because there's no other rooms for them to spread out within the middle school. And so in talking with Mr. Getter, Mr. Osted, and Mr. Nelson, they have a plan in place to put sixth grade to the AD model. And we've heard from a number of families that they're concerned about the in-person model right now anyways, with the number of students we have. So I'm comfortable with waiting till Thursday, but because there isn't going to be much of a change, other than some of our elementary classrooms might have to take a few more things out to get to that maximum space. And would that be nice to know that tomorrow or Wednesday rather than Thursday when they're all traveling or whatever else they're doing? Absolutely, I believe that's important.
So you ask if you can put everybody to rest and say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to be in a hybrid model for the next 2 weeks at the high school level. And we're looking with the sixth grade along in that hybrid model. But decision made and story, we don't have to listen to these teachers. These, again, 100% of my kids' teachers that I've asked them every day for the last 5 days have all been on that same rhetoric of, we're not going to be here. I would love you to come on tomorrow and just say, this is what we're going to do because we need to put it to rest, and everybody knows. And you can start planning, and kids know we're coming back to school after MEA for the next 2 weeks, and we're going to hopefully fight it down with this, fight it down with, doing all the things we're supposed to do. That would be awesome.
I would agree. I mean, if you know today that would be your decision, then let's announce the decision.
I say move forward. There's not much certainty in the world we're living in today, and if we can give families certainty, even if it's just a couple weeks, that will help. I think this is a small sacrifice in the scheme of our entire district. It also sends a message that if we don't follow the rules, we're going to be moving further and further away from being inside a school building. So as much as I don't love it, that's what we have to do.
But just so I'm clear, so that everybody understands, going hybrid model PK through 12 is no change for PK through 12.
It's no change.
Nothing changes in their day-to-day life. They still come to school every day.
The only change, significant change is to sixth grade, which would change
Go to
to
the AD model. I say announce it.
And I would agree with Jennifer. I mean, we talked about this back in August. We are going to have to be, leaders in the community to give some sort of assurance, whether it's having outside ball fields, to giving them some space inside to do outside activities. We also are going to give some clarity for 3 weeks, even if it's not the answer that some of us would like. It gives clarity to the fact that we're going to be staying in the same consistent model other than the sixth grade, which if that helps us to, again, show we're trying to manage it, as Jennifer said, it's a sacrifice for those kids, and I'm not happy with it. Everybody here knows I'd rather have them all be in school every day, so, but if you can give 3 weeks of clear decision-making, I think 80% of our parents are going to say
This
same
will
thing.
take us through October 30th, I think it is.
Right.
I agree with everything everyone's saying, and I would just like to put even a finer point on the fact that this is an opportunity, to Jennifer's point, for us to say this is real, and this is the game that we're playing. And if we keep trending where we're trending, then this is going to just keep happening. It's going to keep rolling, with increased restrictions. And so, I think it could be a moment where we can really try to emphasize and hit the point that, if we can get numbers to go the other way, we can reverse this in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or however it works out.
I do think, though, that we have to also remember that the data that Brad sent out last week through October 8th, we're not seeing extreme issues within our district. I mean, to me, a 0.6% positive rate and a 6% combined positive quarantine, those aren't high numbers. And so, yeah, these are ways that we can continue to bring those numbers down or sustain them. And so those are things that we should be doing. But I also don't want people to think that the data went out there means that, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. Because I don't think we're at that point.
And I really do, I want to credit our administrative team for buying into that we're going to do the individual first, so the individual COVID case happens, individual first. And then if it has to, we'll go by class or by a grade level. And then we're doing building, and then our last ditch effort is a district. And so we are following how we wanted to do this. And so, you know, I really am proud of our team for sticking to that, and I think the board's is telling me to make a really good decision for our school district. Or at least you're not telling me, you're consenting to the fact that this is where I would like to see us go, and I appreciate it. And so I am more than happy to send this communication out tomorrow.
I just want to say I support that, and I've heard similar things of Shannon from my kids too, from, you know, different people in the school saying that we're going to go, you know, so I think this hopefully close that discussion a little bit, that, hey, we are going to stay in hybrid, and move, except for the 6th grade, you know, change, it's not going to be any different. I do think also sending it out early gives an opportunity to maybe highlight, you know, this is what's going on in the community, but going into MU weekend, you know, let's try to be good citizens, students, community, you know, team members, however you want to say it, and, you know, not going out and, you know, being irresponsible in what we're doing, because that could have a consequence in what we come back on Monday to. And we need to have our teachers healthy, we need to have our students healthy, we want our kids in school. And the only way to do that is if everybody's doing all of these suggested things. And that includes when there's breaks. So, okay.
One other ask, Brad.
Sure.
You know, teachers and coaches involved in activities and other activities that might be going on, they're supposed to have a plan, and they're supposed to execute that plan. And I would appreciate you and your administrative team following up with those rules, because their consequences cause kids to miss school, because they don't understand that their plan throughout the school day is going to impact whether or not one of those kids, you know, has to be quarantined or not. And that's not fair, because of administrators not directing their teachers, and the teachers not following them. So I think if you can emphasize to them, this is real. Kids are being taken out of school for a week and a half because people can't tell you what their plan is, or they weren't following their plan, which means they are social distancing in class, they are walking the right ways in the classroom, they are sitting apart at the lunchroom, and in these activities that are going on after school, they are following their plan. And I don't think that that's happening in all places. And again, it starts with you, and it starts with administrators, again, making it crystal clear. If people aren't buying in, and they're talking like this, causing that stress in our kids, it has to end. And we are all here with parents that have high school kids. I mean, you're hearing the same thing. So, we're the bosses, they're the workers. Again, no disrespect. We all have bosses, we all need to follow the rules. And if they can't jump on board with that, then we got a problem, because it's not good for kids. I'm just tired of it. You know, it's a game that people are playing, and they're playing it with our kids' emotions, and they're playing it with kids. You know, if they've got an ideology, then you know what? Go do your thing. But if you don't want to be there, don't be there.
The last item for discussion under COVID planning is our EPTT meeting on Wednesday night. Plan for that to be virtual, Sunny, and then through Teams. Can you access Teams through virtual?
Yeah, and
Sunny,
I would have to anyway.
You can't be there on Saturday?
I'm going to get into the state.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I mean, the decision's been made already for the EPT team. You don't, there's one concern we want to talk about at the EPT team meeting, and that is the actual timing. So we want to change our EPT meeting time dates. Rather than being the Wednesday before the decision on coming out on Thursday, we want to have it, we want to back it up a week, so we're looking at the data. Rather than having the EPT meeting right up against the timeline.
Yeah.
Yes, so the week before? Okay.
I mean, that makes sense to me.
We originally put it right up against the time so we can make the latest decisions possible, but it really seems like since we're looking at data that's kind of 2 weeks old and also try to real-time data, that probably is okay to do it the week before and to see what happens. So I have your input for that, Sunny. You don't need to attend that. That's really the only.
Yeah, if that's the only,
There's other concerns that some of the ET team members wanted to bring forward. Some of the processes that we're doing right now, so I'll include you on the team meeting if you can make it.
yeah,
Okay. But Lynn, you will.
I will attend it. I plan on being there in person, so.
All right.
And just one other point on the communication piece. I think it's important also to just state that going forward, we're going to still do it on Thursday, but we chose to do it after discussion at the board level meeting on Tuesday because of the NBA weekend and this and that, because I just don't want to create, well, if you can do it this day, why can't you do it that day? What's the randomness of it that gets, so that this is the circumstances, this is why we're doing it, and going forward, it'll be on Thursday.
And I think one of the whys is fair to say that it's to squash rumors. I'm sick of having to tell my kid every night, no, that's not what's happening. I'm sick of taking calls. Not that I won't, I always will, but it's the sake it's like on repeat, just from a different person, whether it's a parent or a student.
And just so you know, there's comfort in that we're not alone. Again, the other districts that I work very closely with, they're all going to make a similar decision and similar communication tomorrow. So I feel really comfortable about it. So thank you for your discussion. I do not have any other items for discussion.
Okay. Then just the upcoming events, I think we talked about the EPT experience that's happening. We're attending that, the LEEA recognition banquet.
Can I announce the winners of our 2020-21 LEEA winners?
Yes, please.
Yep.
This was a really great way to start my morning today. I got to hand out those awards at Cold Spring Elementary. First grade teacher Val Fraley was one of our award winners. Our title teacher Christy Stavros was a winner. At the middle school, Levi Peterson was one of our winners. And then at John Clark Elementary, kindergarten teacher Tara Levine was one of our winners. And tomorrow morning, thank goodness this is not live, we'll be out tomorrow morning. I'll be sending it out to the entire district our winners. So. But I did get their picture tonight because we had to get their picture sent off to get to the virtual ceremony. So congratulations to those 4 outstanding teachers.
And then we'll be back in the DEF on the 26th for our regular school board meeting. And I think that's it. Is there anything else that people have? Otherwise, meeting adjourned.